We are well into spring training and the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner remains unsigned. Blake Snell was voted as the best pitcher in the entire National League last year, but it seems like teams just don't want to sign him. Starting pitching is always in high demand, and this offseason the market was hot for starters, with even guys like Seth Lugo and Lucas Giolito getting pretty big contracts. Marcus Stroman, Sonny Gray, and even Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who has yet to play a game in Major League Baseball, all found their new homes pretty quickly. One of the crown jewels of this free agent class is still sitting out there for any team to get. You can never have enough starting pitching, yet it seems like teams think they do. Snell pitched 180 innings last year to a 2.25 ERA. He's won 2 Cy Youngs in his career. How could a team turn down a guy like that? Well, if we break it down, it becomes a whole lot more clear. Let's take a deeper look at the 2023 season for Snell. On the surface, it looks like a dominant season. A 2.25 ERA over 180 innings and a 182 ERA+. Lowest ERA in the league, highest ERA+. This must be a good pitcher, right? Well, let's go one step further. Let's look at the strikeout numbers, the walk numbers. He struck out 11.7 batters per 9 innings, which was the second best among starting pitchers, second to only Spencer Strider. But he was also walking 5 batters per 9, which was the worst among starting pitchers. Only 4 other qualified starters had above 4 walks per 9, with Charlie Morton being the closest to Snell with 4.6 walks per 9. This is the first clear blemish that we have discovered in Snell's game. He likes to put guys on base. But that's not necessarily the end of the world since he's striking out guys at an elite level. Let's continue to go deeper. FIP, one of my favorite stats personally, it takes strikeouts, home runs, and walks, 3 outcomes that are pretty much all on the pitcher, and says what their ERA should be. Is it a perfect stat? No, but it does give you a good general idea on how good the pitcher is at controlling what he can control. Snell's FIP was 3.44 in 2023. That is by no means bad, but it's far from his dominant 2.25 ERA. Now, let's look at the cousins of FIP, xFIP, Sierra, xERA. All of these are ERA predictors with the goal of predicting future ERA. These stats have been proven to be better at predicting future ERAs than ERA itself, and that is what teams use to predict future outcomes. They're trying to analyze what this guy is going to give them in the future when they sign him as a free agent. All of these say that he's a solid pitcher. Most of these are in the mid to high 3s, which you're not going to be complaining about from a starter, but he's far from a dominant ace. They suggest that the production he put up in 2023 will not be sustained going forward, which is a big reason why teams are hesitant to sign him. What is interesting though is finding an explanation for this huge gap. His ERA was the best in the league at 2.25, but his Sierra ranked 23rd amongst qualified starters at 4.06. How does that even happen? Saying that Blake Snell's 2023 season was unique would be an understatement. It was just otherworldly. Not because it was really good or really bad, it was just really weird. Take a look at this graph. This is a chart that shows all qualified starting pitchers and the percentage of pitches that they threw outside of the strike zone in 2023. All the way down here is George Kirby, who is very aggressive and likes to attack the zone to get ahead of hitters. Blake Snell is not on this graph, or at least he's not pictured, because we have to go all the way over here to see him. Yes, there's that big of a gap. This is not a mistake. He throws more pitches out of the zone than any other starter in the league, and it really isn't even close. Let's look at all available data for out-of-zone percentage, which dates back to 2015. Snell isn't quite the highest in the sample, as 2017 Wade Miley and 2019 Kyle Gibson are slightly ahead of 2023 Snell. No matter how you look at it though, he's throwing a lot of balls outside of the strike zone, which obviously isn't ideal. In 2023, he was the best pitcher in the league, even though he is by himself on the wrong side of this graph. This also isn't really the end of the world on its own, because if Snell gets hitters to chase these pitches, then it doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at where Snell stands in terms of out-of-zone swing and miss percentage, or the percentage of pitches that hitters swung and missed at out of all of the pitches that Snell threw outside the strike zone. He is right here, with the second highest percentage only below Spencer Strider. Strider, though, doesn't throw as nearly as many pitches outside the zone. So, has anyone ever had this extreme type of season that Snell has? Let's take a look at these two statistics on the same graph. Take a guess at which point represents Blake Snell. If you guessed this one, you are correct. Others around him include Francisco Liriano, Patrick Corbin, and Kyle Gibson, so not the best group to be a part of, but it's not awful. He's by far the most extreme in this direction that has ever been recorded, and that's why I'm saying this season is just really weird. Another interesting part of this graph is this area up here. This group includes seasons like 2023 Spencer Strider, 2022 Shohei Ohtani, 2021 Shane McClanahan, and 2017 Corey Kluber. These are all pretty good seasons. This seems like the area where you want to be, not going outside the zone too much, but when you do, you're going to get to swing and miss often. This approach will lead to much more consistent results. When you pitch the way Snell is pitching, there's going to be a lot more inconsistent results, and that has definitely been true for Snell in the past. It doesn't take a statistical genius to figure out that Snell hasn't been putting up these dominant Cy Young seasons consistently. There are two broad factors that you like to look at when evaluating a starting pitcher: quantity and quality. The quantity part has been Snell's worst enemy. Out of Snell's 6 full major league seasons, we aren't counting the 2020 season for obvious reasons, he's pitched over 180 innings just twice, and those were his 2 Cy Young Award winning seasons. The other 4 seasons he threw 129, 107, 128, and 128 innings. It's not just injuries either, it's the way that he pitches. That's how it's going to be if you aren't attacking the strike zone. Hitters are going to work him deep into counts, work walks, get on base, and when they work walks, they obviously aren't getting out. This is going to extend innings, make Snell throw a lot more pitches, and ultimately throw less innings throughout the season when compared to other pitchers that throw the ball in the zone more often. If you are looking at this from the front office's perspective, you're going to be a lot more hesitant on giving this guy a big contract when he isn't consistently out there on the mound. The other half of it, the quality, has also been in question. Yes, he put up 2 Cy Young Award winning seasons, but the seasons in between weren't nearly as good production-wise. The expected and underlying numbers are good in the Cy Young seasons, they just don't suggest that he's an elite pitcher. The inconsistency is pretty clear in both quality and quantity, and I think even Blake Snell knows that. I think the one that's really hurting him in the negotiation is the quantity. Well, if even he knows that there are some question marks in his game, why doesn't he just settle for a lesser deal and just sign somewhere so he can actually go to spring training and get ready for the season? That brings me to his agent, who goes by the name of Scott Boras. If you don't know, Scott Boras is one of the more well-known agents out there in Major League Baseball. He's known for being very aggressive, taking risks, trying to get his players the most money. He's been a hot topic of discussion in this free agency period so far. Going into this offseason, his 4 main clients in this free agent class were Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger, Jordan Montgomery, and of course, Blake Snell. These were 4 of the bigger names that were on the open market at the start of the offseason. So far, in terms of the money, it has been pretty disappointing for these 4 players. Snell and Montgomery haven't even signed yet 2 weeks into spring training, and Matt Chapman and Cody Bellinger were unable to secure long-term deals. A lot of people are saying that Boras overplayed his hand here, especially after the news that Snell turned down a $150+ million deal over 6 years from the Yankees when he was reportedly looking for at least $30 million AAV or average annual value. Was turning down that offer a mistake? Is he ever going to get an offer that matches that? Only time will tell, but as of now, it certainly isn't a good look for Scott Boras. Yes, Snell has the final say on whether or not to accept the contract, but it's hard to believe that Boras didn't assure him that there was going to be a better offer to come his way. So far, that offer hasn't quite been made yet. When you look at the teams out there right now, it's kind of hard to find a spot for him that makes sense. Out of all the 30 teams, we can immediately eliminate all of the small market teams and teams that aren't going to be competing in 2024. They are not going to go out and spend a ton of money on a starter when their window isn't open. Then, I'm going to eliminate the 9 teams that are currently over or very close to the CBT threshold or the competitive balance tax threshold. Any salary that is over this threshold is taxed pretty heavily, and the rate at which is taxed at depends on how many years the team has been over the threshold. Now, it's still possible for these teams to make a run at Snell, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense financially unless they're really desperate to win now. I definitely don't see any of them matching the $30 million AAV mark that Snell wants. This leaves only a handful of teams left, and I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing any of these teams going out and pursuing Snell at the price tag. I mean, maybe the Angels, they've done far more questionable things in free agency in the past. Mike Trout's still there, and pitching is pretty thin. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot of demand in the market for Snell right now. Obviously, the supply isn't changing. Simple economics, demand goes down, supply stays the same. The price is gonna go down. Nobody wants him. One thing that is kind of helping Snell is that injuries are starting to pile up. Edward Cabrera went down with an arm injury. Garrett Cole is getting an MRI. If Garrett Cole is out for a significant part of the season, I am positive that the Yankees would be willing to break the bank to replace him with Snell. After all, this is the only year they're going to have with both Soto and Judge in the lineup. Soto is a free agent next year, and guess who his agent is? Scott Boras. So the likelihood of him getting a team-friendly deal in the New York Yankees, Very slim. I can imagine Boras is on the phone with the Yankees as we speak, trying to resume contract negotiations. I don't want to be too critical of Boras just yet. He's been very successful in the past. After all, there are still 2 weeks left until opening day, so there's still time. The better question is Snell going to be ready for the season? Obviously, he's probably getting ready on his own, but he's not getting the in-game reps that you get from spring training. He's pitched in the big leagues for 8 years now, so I'm sure that's not going to be a huge problem, but I can imagine that it is at least a little bit frustrating to be Snell right now and not on a roster. Same with Jordan Montgomery. Only time will tell. From the outside looking in, it may seem odd that a pitcher of Blake Snell's quality is still out there on the open market 2 weeks into spring training. But when you look deeper into it, things kind of align into a perfect storm for something like this to happen. He's had good production, so he wants a big deal. Front offices see the underlying numbers in the future projections and don't really want to give him that big long-term deal, especially with the inconsistencies that he's shown in the past. Throw in an aggressive agent and a few teams with higher payrolls already, it's going to be tough for him to find a deal quickly. Let me know who you think will sign Blake Snell, because he's going to get signed at some point here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.